What's up everybody, and welcome to our very first 100 runs video. Today we're going to be going over how I run Uldaman, and then of course the loot that I received from my 100 runs. But first, let's go over location. So we are in the northernmost portion of Blasted Lands. So you can get here if you're Alliance, you can port to Stormwind and fly northeast. And if you're Horde, you can port to Twilight Highlands and fly southwest down to this northern part. All right, so let's get started. I run this on a 110 Druid. I have a speed set currently equipped. You can level up to 115, but at 115, your Sentinel's Eternal Refuge will no longer work above 115. So I keep mine at 110 just because I don't really see the need to level any farther than that. You can, but I personally don't. So I run this in about 6 minutes. I'm not as efficient as I would like to be, only because I always run this on stream. And so sometimes I get caught up chatting with you guys as opposed to doing my best to stay under 6 minutes. I'm generally in that portion, but I can't always do this cave right here. I do it maybe half of the time, just because otherwise it would tack on too much time. But if I skip the cave, I'm perfect. I'm under my 6 minutes, which is what you want to be at per dungeon run. So if you are a Horde, we did pause here to talk about this. If you are a Horde, you can kill these dwarves right here. If you're Alliance, you cannot. So if you're Horde, they do drop boss loot, so it may be worth it to you. It does fill up your inventory a lot quicker, but you also have 3 more chances of getting a super item, which is why you run Uldaman. Uldaman, I would call the lottery of WoW. A super item can sell anywhere between 1 million and gold cap. There are, let's talk about just a couple of them. So there is Digmaster 5000, Pendulum of Doom, Jackhammer, Miner's Hat, and Popel Fez. So personally, I'm hoping to get either Miner's Hat or Popel Fez, but of course, I would take any of them. So to talk about how rare this is, we have one person in our stream who has run Uldaman over 17,000 times and has never seen a drop. On the other hand, I mean, it is largely RNG dependent, and we do have one person who came in here and on his 40th run, he actually got the Bushmaster 5000. So real quick, let's talk about this room. I don't know if you guys were paying attention, but right here, I came up, I swiped at the boss, I swiped up here, and I was able to loot this entire room by just clicking on this mob right here. And that's very important because you don't want to loot 5 times when you could loot once. It saves you a lot of time. And of course, whenever you can, I would suggest you use your Stampeding Roar right there and your Tiger Dash. But I generally don't Tiger Dash into this room because you do have a chest that's here. It's about a 50-50 chance, I'd say, on whether or not this chest is up. And if you guys saw, it was a locked chest, but we were actually using a scroll of unlocking to unlock it. So you can get a scroll of unlocking there from Inscription. It is one of the first things that you learn with the new BFA Inscription. So I highly recommend, if you are not a blacksmither or not a rogue and you can't unlock these locked chests, then I highly recommend that you get your character who runs dungeons, get them to know Inscription, and then the other choice you have is you can have mining. That way, if you run Burning Crusade dungeons, you can mine the Corium veins. Or personally, I have engineering because I like to use a looterang, which is this right here. It's a toy, and it will loot for you. So instead of having to right click, you can just use your looterang and it will get your loot for you. So another reason I run this on a druid is because the druid has the capability of using Dreamwalk, which you can use to port in and out of the dungeon. So it used to be a little bit worse. You used to be able to use it and then you kind of had to wait around for a minute before it was off cooldown. But recently Blizzard changed it, so you still have your 8.5 second cast time on it. But as soon as you're done casting and you port into the Emerald Dreamway, you can just click on it immediately again, and it will port you right back out and into, well, the start of the dungeon. You have to reset the dungeon, of course. I have a bad habit of sometimes getting so caught up that I don't reset it, so definitely double check that you have reset the dungeon, because there is nothing worse than going into the dungeon and having to run back out again just to reset it. All right, so Dreamwalk is definitely worth it nowadays, but personally, I still use the scenario. So the scenario trick is you go talk to Lore Walker Fu with a Seed of Knowledge and Veil of Eternal Blossoms. And I signed up for the Blue Moon Festival because it has a mailbox, but if you were just using it to port in and out quickly, then you can use whichever scenario you would like. And so you just, instead of hitting Dreamwalk, you would go up here, right click, and say teleport to dungeon instead. All right, the only thing left to talk about is once we get this final boss to spawn, there is a chest in this back room here that drops, I found, between 2 to 3 greens. I've gotten lucky enough to get 1 blue out of it, and there have been some bad times where I've only gotten 1 common item out of it. So it varies wildly, but there's always the chance to get something good, so you can't pass up the opportunity. And just some greens. So that's it. That's the run, guys. Let's go talk about loot. And now the big reveal. Now we go over my loot from 100 runs of Uldaman. And we got nothing, basically. This right here is all of the loot that I got that is Uldaman specific. I got 2 of these annealed blades. I got 2 of the obsidian cleavers, 2 of the beacon of hope, and then 5 of these Spirewind fetters. I got 1 each of these. I got 1 earthen rod, 1 adventurer's pith helmet, and 1 unearthed bands. And then for loot that is not specific to Uldaman, I got 2 of these sniper scope schematics, actually. I kept these in here because they are worth 8.6k region market value. This right here, Janus Firestarter, it's a little bit lower, it's 4.3k, but I figured I would keep in at least all of the good stuff, right? And then this here, actually, this is what I was most impressed with. This formula here, the Enchant Gloves riding skill, 17.4k region. So I'm pretty pleased with that one out of the bunch. All right, but what you're really curious about, how much gold I made off of that? Nothing. I made 163k total region. And then I did the math too for my specific server. I play on Proudmoore, which is a high pop server. So that means generally prices are lower. So in total, I came out to 57k. So this was absolutely horrendous. This is why people generally do not go run Uldaman to make gold. They only run it if they're feeling particularly lucky and hoping that they get, like, for example, we didn't get a Jinsu, which would have upped the price by, well, I mean, it's worth about 200k. So it would have basically tripled our gold, right? So I did not get a Jinsu, I did not get an Excavators brand, and I did not get a Shoveler. So all 3 of those would have definitely helped. And of course, you know, a super would have been nice too, but we can't be so lucky all the time. So that's it, guys. It was bad. If you divide that by 10, that means I was making, on my server, I was making about 5k an hour. And then if you go region market, I was making about 16k. So that is really bad, actually. So I'm hoping we'll do a couple more runs of these, or more shows of my 100 runs. So I'm hoping some of these other ones will be a little bit more lucky. Definitely, Uldaman is not for me, I guess. We'll go back and we'll see if we get lucky. We'll do another 100 runs of this at some point. But that's it for our video. So thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the video and want to see more videos like this, then consider subscribing and hitting that bell button for alerts on all new content. And if you don't want to wait, come find me on Twitch under the same name, Seathrift. Actually, I stream about 5 days a week, and I host Loot Appraiser challenges all 5 days of the week. And I always give away pets on the weekend as well. So I hope to see you there. Thanks, guys.